Two Paths, One Spirit, Parallel Journeys of Norman Jones and Gerald C. Shu with a Similar Pursuit of Human Survival and Well-Being Number 1365, VMT Sharp 706, September 24, 2025. Gerald C. Shu, EclaireMD Foundation. Category, Methodology. Preface. When Professor Norman Jones reflected on his 60-year career in engineering during his distinguished lecture at the International Conference on Protective Structures in 2022, he traced an extraordinary arc, from slide rules and pencil and paper calculations to advanced computational models and global collaboration through digital networks. Jones's journey not only mirrors the evolution of engineering practice, but also provides a benchmark against which one of his students at MIT, Gerald C. Shu, has measured his own life path. Though separated by 9 years in age, their trajectories share a common spirit, bridging theory and practice, and advancing from simple equations and tools to complex systems that shape human survival and well-being. The difference lies in their directions. Jones remained rooted in engineering teaching and research, while Shu moved through engineering design, artificial intelligence, AI, high-tech ventures, and ultimately medical research. Yet their organizing logic is similar. Both kept asking the same foundational questions: what is the governing mechanism? How does the system really fail? What must be measured, modeled, and validated to protect human life? Norman Jones's 60 years in engineering journey, from slide rule to computers. When Jones began research in the early 1960s, engineering relied on slide rules, hand calculations, and simple free-body diagrams. Early computers existed, but with fragile codes, tiny memory, and long queues. A missing bracket could crash a run, wasting an entire day. Input decks were literally cut and taped. Reruns required patience and care. That world imposed discipline. Young researchers learned to understand equations deeply, respect convergence, and think before they typed. For Jones, theory, computation, and experiment became lifelong partners rather than rivals. From theory to computations. In the early years, analytical methods dominated, because they offered clarity under controlled assumptions. Experiments with wire strain gauges, Wheatstone bridges, and manual readouts validated simple equations for beams, plates, shells, and tubes. Over time, computation surged forward. Finite element codes matured, mesh strategies improved, and numerical solvers captured large deflections, plastic hinges, and rate effects. Laboratory work modernized too, with high-speed, digital imaging and computer-controlled loading. Jones admired this power but remained cautious. Numerical results are only as good as the constitutive models and material data fed into them. Even simple theories, he reminded colleagues, can reveal hidden structure and explain counterintuitive outcomes, such as snap-through, buckling mode shifts, or nonlinear collapse. Communication and access to knowledge. In the 1960s, obtaining a paper from overseas could take weeks. Requests traveled by post, replies arrived by mail. Presentations relied on slide carousels that could shatter a lecture if a tray was dropped or missequenced. By the 2020s, instant downloads, digital presentations, and real-time collaboration had replaced those delays. Knowledge widened, but also fragmented. Jones saw both progress and risk. Wider access accelerates discovery, but relentless publication without synthesis can bury essential insights. He urged students to read widely, compare carefully, and integrate. Changing priorities. Jones's research traced the shifting concerns of engineering over 6 decades. Early focus areas included nuclear safety, transportation, and structural reliability under extreme conditions. Later priorities emphasized crashworthiness, impact mechanics, and protective structures. His study simplified nonlinear, dynamic plastic behavior into tractable tools for design, enabling safer cars, ships, and buildings. His book Structural Impact became a foundation of the field because it combined theoretical clarity, validated experiments, and usable design charts. From elasticity to plasticity, Jones's enduring legacy lies in dynamic plasticity, how structures deform permanently under short, intense loads and how that deformation can be harnessed to absorb energy and prevent catastrophic failure. He showed that properly designed plastic flow is not a flaw, but a life-saving feature under impact and blast. His models and scaling approaches converted abstract mechanics into practical rules that engineers could actually use. Closing reflection. Jones's career spanned the transition from slide rules and postal mail to supercomputers and global networks. He bridged elasticity and plasticity, theory and computation, experiment and design. More than a personal memoir, his reflections map a transformation of engineering itself and restate a timeless purpose: connect knowledge to practice to safeguard human life. Gerald Shu's 50-year journey, 42 years of study across 8 fields. Academic foundations. Shu began his path in 1964 as an undergraduate in applied mathematics in Taiwan, then broadened into mechanical engineering, computer science, and biomechanics under Professor James Andrews, in the University of Iowa of the United States. In September 1972, with support from Professor Jones, he entered MIT as a Ph.D. student under Jones's mentorship. At MIT, he also studied finite element methods for linear elastic systems at aeronautical and aerospace engineering, and stepped into the frontier of artificial intelligence through courses of machine learning. With Professor Patrick Henry Winston, the father of academic AI at electric engineering and computer science, he gained a feeling of standing at the crossroads of old and new theoretical frameworks, meeting the rise of computation and intelligent systems. After MIT, Xu continued his postgraduate studies at 4 additional universities. He learned bridge design, soil mechanics, fluid dynamics, and later completed MBA studies in accounting, economics, marketing, and business administration. Each step reflected a restless mind seeking connections across disciplines, never content to remain in a single silo. This experience later shaped his approach to medical research, where he crossed boundaries of medical specialties within medicine, while maintaining a total systems perspective to examine lifestyles, total health, chronic diseases, and mortality together. Early engineering work. From 1976 to 1981, he worked on piping systems and structural design for nuclear power plants, and built a new computer center integrating hardware and software. As a project manager at the Electric Power Research Institute, he noticed that 3 approaches to nuclear containment structures were not converging: an analytical research model from UC Berkeley, a linear finite element model from Brown University, and on-site explosive experiments conducted in the New Mexico desert. The discrepancy pushed him back to fundamentals. He spent 3 more years at UC Berkeley studying soil mechanics, an elastoplastic continuum material, to understand ground structure, interaction and energy dissipation under extreme loads, such as strong earthquakes. High-tech ventures. In 1981 to 1982, Xu helped create the world's first portable personal computer, weighing only 12 pounds, the lightest of its time. From 1984 to 1987, he developed the first design automation software on microcomputer workstations for both mechanical and architectural design. Both ventures failed due to insufficient venture funding. From these 2 experiences, he learned that even the best ideas, like children, require substantial financial support to be nurtured and realized. In 1983, working with a Stanford linguistics professor, he envisioned an AI tool for language polishing and editing, remarkably similar to today's large language models, such as ChatGPT. After 6 months of brainstorming, the project was abandoned due to immature technological components and insufficient computing power available 40 years ago. The concept was sound, the era was not yet ready. After 7 failed ventures, in 1994 Xu gave himself one last chance. He stayed in Silicon Valley to develop an AI-based electronics design automation tool for semiconductor integrated circuit chips. This last attempt became a major success. In 1995, he rose to become the first and most successful Asian American CEO on Wall Street. Even in 2025, his work continues to underpin nearly all commercial AI tools on the market, and he has also become a loyal user of these tools himself. Health crises and turning point. Between 1994 and 2004, Xu suffered 5 cardiovascular events, rooted in obesity that began in 1985 and type 2 diabetes diagnosed in 1990. These health crises eventually forced him, in 2002, to sell off the beloved high-tech ventures he had built himself since 1994. Retirement from Silicon Valley did not mean retreat, it meant reorientation. From 2002 to 2010, he shifted his focus from high-tech ventures to people. He personally assumed financial responsibility for caring for 200 abandoned children and 50 abused women while supporting broader charitable efforts. In parallel, he developed a general-purpose AI infrastructure that later became the backbone of his personal medical AI system, which he continues to use to this day. During the same period, he devoted 9 years to self-studying psychology entirely on his own, without teachers or colleagues, focusing on abnormal psychology and personality disorders. His goal was to better understand the inner struggles of the human mind, as he witnessed firsthand the hardships of vulnerable lives. By 2010, after 25 years of obesity and diabetes, 5 cardiovascular events, and a kidney crisis, Xu concluded that conventional medical treatments alone were not enough to ensure his survival. Determined to take control of his fate, he turned his scientific training inward, launching a self-directed study of endocrinology and mortality-related diseases. What began as an urgent effort to save one life evolved into a sustained research mission, medical research mission. For 16 years, he has worked 13 to 14 hours a day, every day, without pause. He has collected and analyzed more than 4 million data points from his own body, built mathematical models of chronic disease, and published an extensive body of work that bridges mathematics, physics, engineering, and medicine. To date, He has delivered around 300 public speeches at medical conferences, and published 1,365 solo-authored research papers. His medical journey has unfolded entirely through self-study, without teachers, classmates, colleagues, or patients. He has been his own patient, and his body has served as his only laboratory. Comparisons and similarities between Jones and Shu. Despite different domains, the journeys of Norman Jones and Gerald Shu reveal deep structural parallels. Their work converges on method, mindset, and mission, adapting across eras. Both began in the era of slide rules, and learned to think with equations before keyboards. As computation advanced, they adapted rather than resisted. Jones moved from analytical plasticity to numerical simulation and high-speed testing. Shu moved from academic modeling to AI-assisted inference and continuous self-tracking. Neither worshipped tools, both demanded that tools earn their keep by producing accuracy, understanding, and safety, systems thinking and nonlinear complexity. Jones extended structural mechanics beyond linear elasticity into rate-dependent plastic flow, energy absorption, and failure under short-duration loads. Shu extended medicine beyond siloed biomarkers or diseases into dynamic, nonlinear, and often irreversible processes. Each insisted that real systems do not behave like statistical averages. They have thresholds, hysteresis, path dependence, and memory. For both, the problem is not to force linear answers, but to model nonlinear truth. Theory, computation, and experiment as a triad. Jones consistently argued that theory, computation, and experiment should be partners. Equations reveal structure, computation explores regimes, and experiments ground reality. Shu's work reflects the same triad: theoretical framing for mathematics, physics and engineering, computational analysis using AI and large datasets, and relentless personal experimentation through longitudinal self-measurement. In both cases, no single pillar stands alone. Energy as a unifying language. Jones showed that energy methods in plastic work explain survival under impact and blast. Shu's viscoplastic energy perspective treats diseases, organs, biomarkers, and lifestyle details as materials that accumulate damage or dissipate stress over time. Energy is the bridge between structures and organs, between impact, loadings and chronic disease waves, between protective design and preventive care. From complex behavior to usable tools, Jones translated complicated dynamic plasticity into charts and design rules, used by practicing engineers. Shu converts multi-year glucose, pressure, sleep, and activity waves into indices and diagrams that clinicians and patients can understand. Both sought clarity without oversimplification. Their goal was not just to analyze, but to enable action. Validation under constraint. Jones validated with laboratory rigs, high-speed cameras, and field tests when possible, always mindful of data quality and scaling laws. Shu validated against the hardest subject. He could ethically and continuously measure, himself, 4 million personal data points, collected daily for 15 years, imposed a discipline of consistency and calibration. Though their validation environments differ, the ethic is the same: measure what matters, and let the data correct your models. Independence, persistence, and resilience. Jones built a global reputation through steady academic work in both teaching, guiding, and researching, often in eras with limited resources. Shu endured 7 failed ventures before Silicon Valley success, then rebuilt himself as a solo medical researcher. Both persisted through setbacks and kept their eye on the mission. Tools failed, grants ran dry, ventures collapsed, health faltered, the work continued. Communication and education. Jones taught generations of engineers through courses, lectures, and his books. He valued clarity and feared that knowledge could be lost in a flood of fragmented publications. Shu has given roughly 300 talks, published 1,365 single-authored papers, and delivered ongoing messages through his YouTube channels, often translating complex models into accessible diagrams for diverse audiences. Both men treated teaching as a serious responsibility, recognizing that survival depends on shared understanding and open knowledge, not on protected copyrights or private insight. Ethical purpose, human survival and well-being. Jones's work in protective structures and crashworthiness saved lives by design. Shu's work in chronic disease and mortality diseases seeks to extend healthy life by prevention and self-management. Their domains differ, but the end is the same: protect people from catastrophic failure, whether in milliseconds during a crash or over decades of metabolic stress. Caution against false certainty. Jones warned that computation can seduce with color plots and dense meshes, while hiding bad inputs or wrong models. Shu warns that averages can comfort clinicians, while obscuring dangerous outliers. Each argues for humility: interrogate assumptions, expose models to reality, and treat uncertainty as a signal to measure more, not a license to guess. Multi-scale and time-aware thinking. Jones spanned scales from coupons and components to full structures, and from microseconds of impact to long-term durability. Shu spans seconds of blood pressure spikes and years of glucose trends, connecting fast and slow waves into a unified risk picture. Both treat time scales not as a complication to ignore, but as the essential grammar of behavior. Translational impact. Jones's research changed standards and designs. Shu's research reframes personal health decisions and clinical thinking, showing how lifestyle, energy accumulation, and organ stress interact. Both are translational scientists. They translate mechanism into method and method into practice. Closing reflection. The lives of Norman Jones and Gerald C show how two individuals, separated by discipline and geography, can share a common spirit. Jones advanced engineering to protect lives under impact and blast. C reimagined medicine as a nonlinear, dynamic, and partially irreversible system, applying mathematics, physics, engineering and artificial intelligence to fight chronic disease. The parallels are not accidental. Both trained themselves to honor mechanism, to measure carefully, to compute responsibly, and to teach clearly. Both refuse the easy comfort of averages when lives depend on the tails. Tools change. First principles endure. Whether the subject is a hull or a heart, a plate or a pancreas, the same questions guide the work. What fails, when, and why? What energy pathways govern damage or protection? Which measurements truly matter? And what simple rules can be handed to the people who must decide, design, and survive? Seen together, the journeys of Jones and Shu argue for a unified ethic of science and engineering. Connect theory to measurement, measurement to computation, and all three to action, in service of human survival and well-being. Disclaimer: this content is for educational reference only and not medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be edited or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article, and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. Shu.